You're listening to Entertain You. That's you, period, like university. And I'm Jeannie Corcoran, your friendly Sarasota County Film Commissioner. And I am doing this program at the largesse and kindness and courtesy of Radio Ear Network and Society Bites Radio. I thank them both for making this possible. And my purpose for doing this show is to reach out and share entertainment information, education, enlightenment, insight, and sometimes a little gossip, and sometimes a little bit of insight from the insider's point of view based on my guests. And I have wonderful guests from all forms of entertainment, from film, from television, from radio, but also for multimedia and omnimedia. We're going to have people in that are writers and novelists. We're going to have people in that are VFX specialists and so forth. So keep listening all the time, because you'll hear different points of view from different points of people all throughout the entertainment industry. And today my guest is the amazing TONI STOPPERMAN. And I met Tony probably 10 years ago. And he was working on films in conjunction with Ringling College and the students of Ringling College, doing some amazing stuff, including his own film, which was Paradise, Florida.
That's correct.
And Tony has just continued his climb upward and onward and accomplishing great things. So, Tony, let's kind of start backwards at your earliest beginnings so people get to know you a little bit, and we'll work all the way up to what you're doing currently. Tell me about how did you end up in Florida making films?
Sure. I'm a Pacific Northwest guy. My wife and I moved from the Seattle area, Canadian border of Washington State.
Lots of rain.
Lots of rain. Really beautiful. The Florida State MFA acting program is based in Sarasota, not in Tallahassee. It's a 12-person conservatory program connected to the Oslo Repertory Theater in Sarasota.
Which is the big theater, for those of you who don't know, that sits in the parking lot of the Ringling Estate.
Correct.
It sits out in the front parking lot, the big, beautiful building.
It's an old-school apprenticeship type of training program. 3 years of working hard as a company member, an associate company member, and understudy of the professional repertory theater in conjunction with a curricular program through FSU. You spend your first 2 years in classes and have an independent student season, and then your third year you're full-on company members in the Oslo Rep, and you leave with a Master's in Fine Arts in Acting and a union card if
Cool.
you choose to go that path. And so my wife and I chose FSU Oslo because it was a professional acting training program. It wasn't a university setting, and I was just a concrete pouring home builder, barn builder from Washington State that had an affinity and an ability in performance, and no frame of reference for what what I wanted to be in was the entertainment industry. And here was an arm of it, the theater side of the entertainment industry. And I could be around professional actors.
Come in the actor's door.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I'd also be around directors, playwrights, producers, costume designers, all the parts of an industry that I had no familiarity with. And I would get the opportunity to come live in Paradise while I was getting acclimated to an industry, and then my plan was to graduate and leave with my wife and go to New York or Los Angeles and fight that fight. But when I graduated in 2012, my wife is a civilian. She's not in the industry. She's a school teacher. And we had fallen in love with Sarasota, and her job was as a great job at Tuttle Elementary, and now she's at Southside Elementary.
Oh, yeah.
And we were ready to start a family. And within 11 months of graduating from grad school, we had our first child, my son Charlie, who's now 6, and we have another son, Jack, who's 3. And have found a home and a place here in Sarasota. And so after pursuing acting, I was left going, well, I'm not chasing the acting path any longer, but I still have this desire to create and tell stories. And ended up working in the president's office of Ringling College of Art and Design, which has one of the top film programs in the country, the department head's Brad Battersby. And they have this weird offshoot for professional relationships with filmmakers to do things called the Studio Lab in a collaboration with David Shapiro. And they've been bringing in guest artists to do master's classes and guest speaking opportunities from Oscar winners and TV stars and producers like Paul Schiff, Werner Herzog, Justin Long, Kevin Smith. And when I came into Larry...
Forrest Whitaker.
Oh, Forrest Whitaker. I mean,
no,
they've had 40... I mean, they bring in 4 or 5 every year for the last 10 years. And when I ended up in Larry's office, my job was project management that I could execute as well as create my own executive level projects in the president's office. And so I pitched him on the idea of, well, why don't we make movies? I just left this premier actor training program, and you've got this premier filmmaking program. Let's bring them together and let's give them a real world experience that gives actors a real movie to put on their credits and the students a real film to put on that. And that was called The Lucky Six. That was directed by Brad Battersby. And that was our first kind of professional endeavor, and it happened outside of the curricular constraints of both institutions. When you're an MFA acting student, you are at the leave of the program and the theater, and then when you're a film student at Ringling, you're just baked into a curriculum. But the window was the summertime, so we did a summer feature film between the two. It was the first joint endeavor between the two programs, and we followed that the next summer with my film that I wrote and alum Nick Margulis directed from Ringling called Paradise, Florida.
Well, I remember with The Lucky Six, there was so much great community involvement. That was the first time we as an overall community got to see a lot of people step up and try and help. Yeah. And you used the old Colony Beach and Tennis Club out there, and it had been closed for a while, and parts of it were condemned, and some of it had asbestos. But
you write to your resources. We wrote about an abandoned beach resort,
right.
So I happened to have one of those at the time.
And it actually looked pretty good, all things considered.
It looked fantastic, and Murph had always been such a strong advocate of film in the community as part of the arts and cultural scene, as well as part of a burgeoning economic development component of it. So it was amazing to be able to use his property there for that film.
Well, Murph was one of the first foundational people for the Digital Filmmaking Lab initiative. I remember when he and Kathryn Harris and Paul Schiff and David Shapiro sat down and talked at the Colony Beach Club, and Larry was there, and I was there that morning, and then I had to leave. It was a Sunday, I believe. And from that blossomed so much. I mean, look at where they are today. Wow. Yeah, look where you are today. Yeah. So anyway, I just took a little side trip there. But then you moved on to Paradise, Florida.
Paradise, Florida, and that Lucky Six was purely philanthropic. It was a small film, maybe like $120,000, and it was all supported by philanthropy. Mm-hmm. That the donation supported that project to the institution. The next learning curve for me as a producer, and also at the time for Ringling College, was a film is inherently a commodity, that it's a product made for the market to be sold at market. So how does a not-for-profit sync up with a for-profit to make something that still had a not-for-profit or charitable component with student learning? And that was the evolution to Paradise, Florida. We still had 28 current or immediately graduated Ringling students. 7 or 8 alumni or current students from the Oslo were involved in that film, and that was raised with some philanthropy for certain discrete components and private capital investment to people who were interested in the upside of a film.
Sure.
And it premiered at the Opera House of the Sarasota Film Festival, went on to play in Jamaica at a festival, Virginia.
I saw it at the film festival. I saw it at Burns Court. I saw it in a lot of places.
It had a nice life, and it really showcased a story that could be told here at a small budget, and it went on to be released on Amazon. And the next film was the perfect evolution of where we had been going, which was Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. Tim Sutton had connected with David Shapiro through Tom Paul, the sound designer, who's also a consultant on the brand new sound stages and post facility. And Tim had a film which was based loosely on the Aurora, Colorado shootings. Mm-hmm. And so imagining that could happen anywhere, and didn't have any judgment about gun control. Just, this is a day in a life where shooting will happen. Mm-hmm. So it's this taut, tense, really slice of life of a community that ends up at a place where a shooting is going to be.
Right, and I think I was at Sundance when you brought it to Sundance, if I remember right, and you were meeting with Gersh, and lots of great things were happening.
It had an incredible release in the next category at Sundance in 2015, 15 or 16 that premiered there. And Tim went on, his next film premiered at Toronto. He did Donnybrook, and now he's got another film. So it was an incredible opportunity for young students to work with a talent in Tim Sutton to go that route. And then we built from there. We got into web-based content with Dylan McDermott, Justin Long, and then the latest is the feature. And my last project before leaving Ringling College was with Kevin Smith. Kilroy Was Here.
Sure. And
I left in the fall of 2017 from Ringling to pursue my directorial debut on a film called Draupadi Unleashed, which is about 1930s India.
And it was a beautiful piece from what I saw of it. I haven't seen a lot, but from what I saw, did an amazing job, and we faked this
India.
Vintage India in Sarasota County, Florida.
Yeah,
it was amazing. I remember you called one day and you were looking for a place to stage the wedding, and I think I suggested, have you looked at the gazebo in Selby Gardens? It's very kind of Asian, but not necessarily stuck in it.
It's a great moment in the film. We completed post. It's a completed film, and now it's out to sales agents, and we'll see where it ends up, where its life in distribution goes. But we filmed all of that in Florida. We filmed in Lake County. We filmed in Manatee County. We filmed in Sarasota County, and utilized not-for-profits as well. Selby Gardens was able to receive charitable donations to help us at a price point that allowed us to film at this incredible location.
It's so beautiful.
Opened up the world. So we filmed at the Powell Crosley Estate in Manatee. We filmed at Philippi Estates in Sarasota County, and then the Howie Mansion in Lake County, Florida. And it's a great piece. As a filmmaker, it was a nice opportunity for me to put my money where my mouth is as a creator that I've watched. Paradise, Florida was a lot about my own biographical experience before I became a husband and a dad, and someone that my friends and family are proud to own. But it's a story that I've seen. A story about a young white guy coming to terms with himself and overcoming struggles. And here was this film, a book about a young South Asian, Indian, Hindu, high-class woman in a love triangle. Someone she loves versus someone she has to marry. And the entire cast, this whole story is female-centric. It is entirely cast with performers of color.
And because it's a period piece, what I liked about it, from what I know of it, and I haven't seen a rough cut or anything else of the whole thing, but what I liked about it was it's a period piece, but it addresses real-time, real-day issues right now, because there still are cultures where women don't have a lot of freedom of choice as to who they marry, and there still are cultures today in this world where women's choices can be limited, and you have to sometimes buck tradition and buck your family and go up against these enormous odds of culture and religion and belief systems and everything else. It's timely.
It was, and that's what I was trying to with that. Even though you look at a lot of period films, and if they're just purely period, then it's a documentary. But you look at all the films of now I'm drawing a blank. Ivory, Heat and Dust, and Austen adaptations. That if there isn't a current reason to do it, then why are you doing it? Then you can just do a documentary or a biographical piece about a person. But this had present day relevance that I was drawn to in adapting the unpublished novel into something that was cinematic, and I fell in love with my cast and the production design and the fact that often films about other people are from the experience of the majority. That you stick a white guy in another culture, and we watch a movie. The shape of that narrative is like, oh my gosh,
he's a fish out of water.
I'm a fish out of water, and I thought this about brown people and women, and now I think this about brown people and women, and I didn't. And